Hello and welcome to another Demon 212 PSN review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Savage Moon, which if you've never played it before, it's basically a tower defense game. I personally think it's the best one on the PlayStation, and well, on the PlayStation Network. I don't know if there's any actually on the PlayStation, and I think it's one of the best that I actually own. I own about 20 to 30 of them, and I think this one's fantastic. At the start, you've just simply got Start Game. You can then unlock Vengeance Mode. Vengeance Mode's basically, it's, well, unlimited. You play on the same levels unlimited. High scores is bog standard high scores. There's tons of options, but at the same time no options, because it's all pretty much useless stuff that you're not really going to care about. You can just change camera movement speed and things like that. You can switch CCTV on and off. You've then got the tech creature library, which basically tells you about, like, well, the game really. It tells you about the enemies and stuff like that. So anyway, let's start. There's basically 12 levels overall, and in playing the levels you get awards for doing things. So it's for like not actually getting injured, like your base not getting injured at all through the course of a level. That's an extra award on the well, extra achievement on the list of things that you have to do. As I say though, it is basically a tower defense game, so in case you haven't played them before, the whole gist is this. You have to build towers to combat oncoming waves of enemies, and you've got to keep upgrading towers and building towers, etc. But this one has a bit of a twist, because in the top right corner it currently says 0, that's because I'm at my limit. This one has a certain number of towers that you're allowed to use. So it is quite simply a case of you have to be very careful. You can't just constantly rely on building new towers. You really are going to have to upgrade the towers, and the upgrades do run out. So it's one of them things. You can actually buy more upgrades though. That's one of the things that you can buy in the tech development, because it's another thing that I like about the game that makes it a hell of a lot more advanced than most tower defense games. You've got sub options and that. So instead of just building a tower, upgrading a tower, yada yada, and boring old mundane stuff like that, you've got to actually build the building of towers. You've basically, it's almost as if you're contracting scientists to build these towers for you. So you've got that, and in later levels you've got to build towers before you can build other towers, if you know what I mean. Because it's basically like you've got to build the mortar tower before you can build the mine tower, and stuff like that. You can get all sorts of towers. There's obviously the mortar tower, which is basically, it fires mortars straight up into the air, and the blast radius and all is massive, and it kills loads of enemies. And the radius of the actual tower as well is really big. It's one of the biggest on the game, if not the biggest, to be fair. You can build towers that seem useless but are actually quite useful, like for example that are just blocks and you just shove them in the way of the enemies. That way it completely changes how the enemies can get to you. So for example, if I quickly build those there, now they haven't got a path this way and they've got to take the long route round, which obviously means I've got a lot more space to build towers in the way to kill the enemies off. And then you can actually put towers on those block towers, so that's pretty cool. But all sorts of different towers, as I say. You got the machine guns, you got lasers, you got mortars, you got mine towers, you got anti-aircraft guns. You've even got towers that actually power up the towers that it's next to. So the game's got everything covered pretty much. The camera system on the game is pretty unique. It's something I've never really seen in a tower defense game, because even on the PC ones that I've got, it's all pretty much a static camera, and it's very annoying for that. This, it's a full 3D camera pretty much. Obviously you can't look right up at the sky, but you don't want to. But it's basically as if you were controlling an FPS as well, and I actually think that that really helps the game, because it helps for tower placements. There's, as I say, there's 12 levels, and it's basically set on 3 different moons, so I'm just going to cut into the second moon now, because the locations do actually change. So anyway, this is basically the second moon, so as you can see it's went from being dreary and brown to this one's basically like a magma planet with all sorts of lava rock on the floor and smog and things like that, which is basically sulfur, I believe, just stuff like that. So to be fair, while the location has changed, it's not really all that different. It's still pretty much the same setup, but that's because it's a tower defense game. Of course, the same setup. You've got to have things that you can build towers with and that. Top right corner, it shows you the health of your base, and basically by just letting some enemies swarm us, you can hopefully see what happens when they kill you, because there should be enough to kill us, but if not, then I might have to do another cut, which my brother will kick off about. But it's one of those things that when they swarm you, it's pretty cool what happens. So here we go then, certain death is pretty much imminent. and upon doing it, it just basically shows you the creatures going in and blowing things up, and I quite like that, because that's one of the CCTV things on it, because you can set up the cameras so that when the enemies come out at first, it can show you what's going on. But I actually think that the cameras like that are very irritating, and I ended up having to switch them off, because it doesn't freeze for the game. It's the camera is live, everything it's showing is actually happening, and at first you think that's really cool, and then you realise, hang on a second, they're actually getting shot, my towers are shooting things. So if the wave starts before you've set things up, then it can come back to bite you in the ass. You can also, though, actually go into the tower's camera itself, and you can just basically, after you've got a load of fortifications up and you know you're pretty safe, so you can take your eye off the action from one point of view, you can put yourself in the action from another point of view, and you can view exactly what the tower's doing, so you can view the enemies it's killing. So wave enemies is just about to start, but to be fair, you can actually in all these options, as well as viewing the information about what enemies are coming and that, and just viewing other stuff, armor bonuses and command skills and that, you can advance the waves, but it only lets you do it at a certain point. So anyway, let's get into this camera, and as you can see, close up frontal view of well, this tower, I suppose, not actually me, this tower killing all the enemies. That's, to be fair, the one disappointing thing about the camera though, that I've just pretty much bit of a slip of a tongue's reminding me of, the fact that you don't get to control the towers, and I think it would be really cool if you could go into a tower and just control it and have it like a first person shooter almost, because that would just be really cool, and it'd probably add a lot more depth to the game, and it'd take away some of the strategy, because I suppose if you're better than a tower, so maybe that's why they didn't go whole hog and do it, because the game would have been a bit easy. You can also sell towers though, in case you haven't noticed, and basically that just blows them up and you get some of your money back, and that's simply there for in case you've discovered that a tower's useless, or it's at least useless where it is, and stuff like that. As I say, there's 12 levels, loads of different towers on the game. There's the Vengeance mode, which, as I say, is just an endless mode of all the levels. You basically like have endless waves again and again and again, and the enemies are just going to keep getting harder and harder and more numerous and that. And you've still got a limit on how many towers you've got, so there's plenty of things to do. And for the price it is, I think it's a fantastic game. And as I say, one of my favourite tower defence games that I own. Graphically, things look really, really nice. I know it's all drab and dreary from this point of view, but it is really nice, and the graphics are clean cut and that, and when you go into the cameras you can pretty much see some of the detail as well as some of the fuzz, because obviously the camera's going to have a bit of fuzz on it. And musically, it's just basically usual tower defence stuff really. It's just there because I suppose if it wasn't there it would be a bit boring and bog standard, so it's just there. That's pretty much the nicest thing I can say about the music, because as I say, tower defence games, you never really get music that exactly rivals things like Final Fantasy or The Legend of Zelda or anything, but at the same time you can't really fault the music either. So there we go then, that's been the review. I hope you've enjoyed it, or at least found it helpful. You might have noticed I didn't score the game. Well, that's because it's a matter of personal opinion, and yours may very well differ from my own. I'm just here to show you a bit about the game. If you like it or not, well, that's up to you. If you don't like it, or you do like it, feel free to comment. Also, if I haven't answered any of your questions that you may have had, I might have forgot something, or it might just be something obscure. Again, feel free to comment, ask, always willing to help out. Otherwise, if you don't like commenting on YouTube, head over to www.vc-forums.com, where you can chat with me and a bunch of other lads who love the VC, the WiiWare, and hell, even a lot of other systems. We cater to pretty much everything. You can just go there, have a chat about a game, ask about some games, etc. So until next time, this has been Demon212, signing off.